It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all you need. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful author and writer. He's got 6 books out right now, ranging from Perfecting and Reforming Personal Religion, A Battle of a Fallen Record, The Bible Sabbath, and more. And he also is a grad school student out of UMass of Boston and specializes in critical and creative thinking. And this is something you really want to think about and gets into. Man of the Bible, also studied U.S. Constitution, and this guy's just amazing to talk to. So live, ladies and gentlemen, from beautiful Boston, Massachusetts, ladies and gentlemen, the very talented and wonderful author and very creative, Linwood Jackson Jr. Linwood, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Definitely. Good afternoon.
Thank you. And you're an author of, quite a number of books, and you've got some out right now on Amazon as well. It's Perfecting and Reforming Personal Religion, Heaven's Genuine and Counterfeit Ministry, and you also have A Fallen Record, A Fallen Record, Christian Transgression, Battle of Hosts, The Controversy of the Sixth Seal. These are on Amazon, by the way, and also you have an upcoming as well, too, which the most recent, The Bible Sabbath, and you study U.S. Constitution, and you also are going to grad school in creative and critical thinking. And before we get into all that, tell us how exactly you got started.
I definitely got started with my own self, just trying to understand how do I navigate me in this world. I graduated college and just definitely wasn't prepared, not for life, but for myself, engaging with life. And so, I just sat down one day and going through definitely a lot, wondering what was going on with me. I really didn't have I didn't really trust the guidance around me, so wasn't really raised religiously, but, still have that kind of background inside of you. I just picked up the Bible and just started studying it. At that time, I also was sick, and the diet that I learned from the Bible, I applied that to my physical body. My mental self also got stronger. And so just the application of those words to my life kind of got me on this journey that I'm in right now, which is the journey of becoming innovative within yourself to benefit other minds that are outside of you.
Also explain the whole concept of critical and creative thinking as part of your studies for grad school.
Yeah, definitely. That is a program that is surprisingly fitting to what I'm doing. The aspect of critical and creative thought, approaching your life in a way that is deeper than I guess you would think, the aspect of your being and the aspect of living a kind of creative and innovative life. That takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of effort, but the entire point is to get you to be the best person that you can be, as beneficial to someone who does not even know who they are at that time, and that they have the potential to be the best person that they can be.
Mm-hmm.
So critical and creative thought, it's a beautiful philosophy of understanding who you are as a human being and perfecting that being, which actually ties into my overall, study of the Bible's philosophy, which is mental and spiritual health. And once you have that mental and spiritual health locked in and daily exercising it, you can definitely be your best being and give that best being to this entire world for a tribe or a slate of folks who you may not even know need who you are specifically created to be. And that's the most beautiful thing, I think.
And give us some examples of critical and creative thinking.
Well, an example is just looking at something that you're doing or looking at something that you're thinking about, whether it's politics or whether it's religion, and sort of losing consciousness about what you're looking at and what you're thinking about, detaching yourself from it in a way that the traditional upbringing that you may have or the kind of self-cultivated spirit you've taken on from the traditional outlook of politics or religion, detaching yourself from that to actually critically think about what you're looking at so that you can creatively manifest an original point of view from what you're looking at to live in a sort of way that is according to your own perspective and not a perspective that has been traditionally forced on you or that you have somehow, delusionally self-cultivated to believe that this is correct and everything else is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, just looking at everything from a detached point of view, stepping away from tradition, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's anything. Everything is attached to tradition. As long as you can manage to step away from that traditional aspect, to actually look at it clearly according to you, and to struggle through understanding what that definition is and retaining that knowledge and then living that knowledge, that's the most beautiful aspect of what we are as human beings. And I try to get that out. And when I read or when I speak, anybody that's listening or a gathering, just to step away from traditional aspects to get true knowledge for a good, true opinion for belief to live by.
And he also talked about having it tied to the Bible as well, too. Give us some examples of critical and creative thinking from the Bible, like, say, take some passages from Genesis, Exodus, or, say, even Corinthians or Micah or even Revelation, the book of Acts, and maybe you can just, share some examples on how creative and critical thinking can apply to the Bible, especially in certain passages.
Of course, and that is an excellent question because even one of my books, A Battle of Hosts, the controversy of the sixth seal, the book of the Revelation, the words that are there, they're traditionally broken down from a Christian point of view, and so the words are broken down to be literal. And so when the Christian teachings are teaching the book of the Revelation, their foundation is from a point of view or from a paradigm that a literal event is going to happen where somebody is literally going to come down from the sky and cast down literal fire on people to literally burn them up who do not literally believe on the person that is coming down from the sky. And that when this happens, the good people are literally going to be taken back up to where this character came from to literally live forever where he came from.
That,
so this
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so the words of the Revelation, when they're being interpreted by the Christian religion, which is basically a Western religion, the Bible in and of itself is not a Western religion or a Western book. The Bible is written by an Eastern mind. So when you're analyzing the language that's in the Bible, it shouldn't be analyzed according to a Western perspective, but according to an Eastern perspective. And that takes a lot of time and effort and translating of words from English into Hebrew or English into Greek, and then from Greek right back into English or from the Hebrew right back into English. And so when you're critically analyzing the book of the Revelation, according to how it is written and according to the language that's there, you discover a perspective that is creatively intricate and that is different from what the Christian religion actually teaches. You actually understand that there is no such event that will ever happen of somebody literally coming down from the sky and literally casting down fire. And this isn't what the book of the Revelation teaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so going through this, I began to understand that, and I began to put these things into writing. And that is A Battle of Hosts, the controversy of the sixth seal, which the Bible actually teaches us through the history of Nebuchadnezzar and Pharaoh, as is recorded in the book of Jeremiah. And so when you apply what the Bible already gives us, and then you take it and then you put it into its figurative aspect, you understand a real meaning from just that whole collaboration of writing and of images and also of words and of language and context. And you get the meaning that the Bible is trying to teach as opposed to the meaning a traditional religion is trying to impose.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good perspective as well, too. And also the many versions like the King James, the New King James, the NIV, American Standard Edition, and many other versions and translations. Does that affect the way of critical and creative thinking when it comes to the Bible when you see all these different versions of it, as I mentioned, about the King James, the American Standard, and the NIV?
It does. It does. And when it's when you're in that, when you're supporting that kind of when you're supporting the religion, it's good. Because when you're supporting the religion, then you're getting to the traditional aspect of what that religion is about. And each of these translations helps clearly define what that traditional outlook is. But in reality, it's a wrong thing to do, and it's false, because the reality isn't the traditional aspect. The reality is what the words actually are. And so the closest thing that we actually have to I would say at this point, to what the original apostles used is the King James Version. There's a New King James Version, just as you said. There's an international, there's an American, there's a this, there's a that. But the closest thing that we have is the King James Version, and it's the best one because there are more errors, more grammatical, and there's just more literary errors in that book. And the reason being is that when the authors constructed the book, their translation from the Syrian into English, it was very imperfect. So you have more italicized words in the King James Version than you may have in any others, which is beautiful because it's just a sign that those are not the right words that need to be there. And so then you have to go back and do research into the original language that it came from so that you can get the actual language that those italicized words mean. And that is perfect. But when you go through the different versions, they're trying to perfect the errors of the King James Version. And by doing so, they're actually ruining the vision that the Bible actually has by trying to put the Christian imprint on what the Bible should actually say when the Christian imprint is not the Bible's imprint.
Mm.
And yeah, so it ruins it, It's like a painting that has water running down it. Each interpretation of the Bible is just more water running down a painting.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. And you say the Syrian version of it or the writing was the original, did you say? I just want to clarify.
Well, the original writers of the Bible were Syrians.
Syrians, okay. I was
Yeah.
I was trying to get that right, that's all.
Yeah. The original writers, they were Syrians, and the language is an Eastern language, along with the philosophy is an Eastern philosophy. And it's just real messed up when you read the Bible from a Western point of view, which is what the Christian religion has formed itself as, a Western religion from an Eastern point of view. And that just damages the words and the perspective and the vision and the context of the entire Bible.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we're talking about the subject of the churches as well, too. And how do you feel about the state of churches today?
Depends on the language, if you're going to get what you pay for.
Uh-huh.
And so when ministers are going through these seminaries, they're getting what they pay for. And the way that the Bible is translated through these seminaries and that it's taught in a sort of way of in a biblical fashion, hermeneutics, which is a way of interpreting the Bible as you would interpret a history book.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of lose the natural aspect of the words when you're interpreting it in that sort of fashion, when the Bible already, in the book of Isaiah 28 tells you how to interpret it. And so when you're going into these churches, you're getting interpretations of a false spiritual landscape. And so the state of the church is the state of the foundation of the religious tradition. And, there's too many people, whether they're sitting there or they're listening. I've spoken even to pastors that do not believe what they're preaching to people.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's the state of the churches.
Wow.
And
go ahead, keep going.
It's gotten to that point right now where it's like the people don't believe what they're hearing, but they're still sitting there and they're waiting for what they know they should be hearing. The pastors are there speaking, and they're not fully believing what they're speaking to give the people what they need. And so the people keep coming back and giving their money because they're waiting to hear something. The pastor, because this is also what they're trained to do. They weren't trained in the Bible. They were trained in the traditional religious philosophy, which is in and of itself empty. And so the people are empty. The pastors are empty. You go there, you are empty. And I'm speaking to way too many people that are telling me I feel wrong when I'm sitting in church. And too many pastors there that do not fully believe what they're teaching. So the state of churches is the state of the philosophy of the religious tradition, which is a state of absolutely nothingness because the words are not being given from a right perspective.
And of course, we'll talk about one of the books as well, too. I'll fall on record, the Christian Transgression in just a minute since we're tying this in. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web is affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Folks, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with author Linwood Jackson Jr. He's a University of Mass Boston grad school student right now, critical and creative thinking. He's also specializing in mental and spiritual health, especially in politics, religion, and the Bible. We'll talk about the Constitution in just a minute. He's also got some books out called A Battle of Hosts, The Controversy of the Sixth Seal, The Bible Sabbath, which is most recent. But first, we're going to talk about his one of his other works. We got into about the current state of the church, which is a fallen record, the Christian Transgression. So you can just tell us a little bit about that book that's currently on Amazon right now.
Definitely. That book came about, as I'm going through and doing a lot of my studying, I'm realizing that the Christian religion isn't actually fulfilling the mission of the Bible. And so that kind of, led me to, want to go back and understand why or what happened. And so that book is basically a history book. It's a history book tracing why the ancient Christian ministers, which came from the Jewish religion, why these Jewish ministers ended up forming their own religion, separate from the first apostles, why they formed this religion and why they called this religion a Christian religion. And that book just traces what they did wrong all the way down to Constantine, who actually coined the term Christianity and defined its doctrines, which doctrines are still held today and are still built upon.
And of course, it's also read through the eyes of John, Peter, and Paul, going back to 50 A.D. I mean, you did a lot of research on that. And from your perspective, what were John, Peter, and Paul doing or telling at that time?
At that time, 50 A.D. was the, and I'm being generous because I'm putting a little bit more faith in the people, but at that time in 50 A.D. was the dawning of the Christian religion. And at that time, Paul, Peter, John, James, they were all giving advice to these Jewish ministers as to the fact that what they were teaching was causing a separation in doctrine and also in ties, and was also publicly confusing, because at this time these Jewish ministers were starting to incorporate the pagan Roman religion into their religion. And
Uh-huh.
so they were talking about their Jesus in a different way than the apostles were talking about the doctrine that they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically an edge of popularity, but also an edge of, doctrinal delusion, everything combined with the times. They were advising, for example, John wrote in his first book, John chapter 2, that a certain group went out from them, and a certain group didn't continue with what they were teaching, and they you know this happened so that we could know that they were not a part of us, but they were a part of.
About some of the people coming empty and everything else. You had 7 churches, but only 2 God was pleased with. So maybe from your perspective, put on your critical and creative thinking, you have the Church of Philadelphia, the Church of Smyrna, Ephesus, and Pergamos, and also Sardis, Thyatira, and also Laodiceans. And maybe you can just tell us about those churches.
Yeah, most definitely. The revelation, because it's really not, the revelation is a vision, the revelation is a dream. And a dream isn't really that literal until you wake up.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the Church of Ephesus. Ephesus is called Ephesus because in that age, which is the age you just mentioned, from 31 AD all the way down to, I would say, 120 AD. In that first age, it's called Ephesus because the Ephesians were worshippers, we're told in the book of Acts, of a goddess called Diana, and also the son of Jupiter. And this church is called Ephesus because at this time, Jewish ministers, they were combining their religion with the religion of Asia. And of Asia, Asia later became the place where Constantinople actually was after Constantine created the Christian religion.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Greek and the Jewish religion, Zeus is Jupiter, Jupiter is Zeus, Apollo is Apollo. Today we call the goddess Diana Mary. Today the son of Jupiter is called Jesus. We call Jupiter God, or God the Father, Zeus, God the Father. This is all the transition that these ministers were making in the Christian religion that kind of carried over all the way down to Pergamos, which was the time of Constantine.
Wow, that is amazing as well, too. And, of course, you also have a book called Heaven's Genuine and Counterfeit Ministry. You can just tell us more about that one.
Yeah, that book deals with the book of the Revelation, chapter 13, but it doesn't begin there. It begins with analyzing what the genuine point of the Bible's religion is, and then it goes into the book of the Revelation, chapter 13, to show what the religious state at that time will be. In the Bible, the definition of a beast is a government or a kingdom, civil government, or a civil state. This is how the Bible defines a beast. And in Revelation 13, there is a beast that comes up, with 2 horns. In this book, I analyze lightly, like as an introductory, what this means for the genuine religion of
The competition way. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with author Linwood Jackson Jr. out of Boston, Massachusetts, going to grad school for critical and creative thinking. We talked about the Bible and talked about a few of his books, and focusing on mental and spiritual health, we have one of the books called Perfecting and Reforming Personal Religions, available on Amazon. And tell us all about that book.
That book is about you going through your spiritual journey in a way that can benefit your physical body. And this book came about through me. through my own injury that I suffered, I damaged my body, and this caused me to wonder or to question my own self as to why I would rather choose to abuse my own self instead of thinking about something better to do to help myself. And so I ended up studying the philosophy that is in the Bible, learning the definition of love as it's taught by those words and by the illustrations that it gives. And that was my first book. That first book is basically um, steps or counsels on how to regulate your mental and spiritual diet for you to physically regain enough strength to use the industry that is in you for benefiting another person
Hmm.
or for benefiting other persons. So, learning so much about the Bible's philosophy, you find out that you can either go the traditional religious route or you can either go the personal religious route. And the Bible really talks about the personal religious route and advises to stay away from the traditional religious route.
Mm. That,
The the,
go
the
ahead.
actual the actual aspect of resurrection that the Bible talks about, resurrection or regeneration, we're born into, our mind is born into a religious tradition, but we're supposed to, as we go along and as our confidence strengthens, we're supposed to die to our religious tradition mentally and spiritually and to resurrect from that religious tradition to a more liberated and into a more free personal religion where we're not dictated by the policies or by the handwritten religious laws, deeds, acts, doctrines, or baptisms that is regulated into a more active and into a more personally knowledgeable system, which is inward. It's just like our blood circulating. Nothing tells our blood to circulate, and yet it still does. It's like our stomach right now is producing bile, and we're not controlling it. And this is the way that our personal religion should be. It shouldn't be dictated on knowledge that is philosophical or theological. It should be dictated by the experience we have with those words, so that it flows just like a river, or so that it circulates just like blood. Naturally, unconscious is just a love that is just pure and flowing.
Hmm. And that's a fantastic book, too. We'll check that out. Also, a couple other books, A Prayer for Change and The Bible Sabbath, which is your latest as well, too, on Amazon. Tell us about those two books.
A prayer for change is, it actually goes along with a Bible Sabbath. So often we really want, at least when I've spoken to different people, change in their behavior and change in how they think and change in how they operate, change in how they spend their money, change in how they find the person that they're supposed to spend the rest of their life with. And all of this really begins inwardly. And so that inward change, a very great piece of that inward change comes through the Sabbath of the Bible, which is the seventh day. Um, there is a special specific blessing held to the seventh day that is called rest. And to us, rest we would say is inactivity or dormancy or nothingness. But in the Bible, in Hebrew, the word rest translates to mental activity for spiritual and mental rejuvenation. And so the Bible Sabbath is really a mentally active period of time where you're going through the words of the Bible to retain a better understanding of them, to apply to your mind so that you can carry it with you when you go throughout the days of the week to grow mentally and spiritually and inwardly. And that is a great piece of change if we're looking for it, to take the lessons that are in those words and then to actually reapply them, which is very difficult to do, but once you do them, you gain a knowledge and belief to live by for continual regeneration mentally and inwardly.
Hmm. That is amazing as well, too. You can find those books on Amazon and something to apply to life as well, too. And not just Bible, you also studied the U.S. Constitution for quite some time. And tell us how you got started in studying U.S. constitutional law and what got you interested.
Yeah, tell you, the Constitution is a beautiful document. I was actually studying the Bible and I ended up writing a book on how the Bible defines the type of government that is respectable. And as I was going through like from the beginning of the Bible until the end, there are specific examples and specific definitions given on how a correct government should be operating.
Mm.
And so as I was going through it, I began to just, I don't know, something just clicked inside of me and I picked up, I began to research, and my research led me to a textbook from Harvard Law School, Religion in the Constitution. And so I got that textbook. I read all 900 pages, and the connection between the First Amendment and the philosophy of a correct state, that got me interested, not necessarily in the Constitution itself, but just in the aspect of the Constitution being a shield for freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and most importantly, the aspect of no encroachment of the government on religion, no unnecessary encroachment of the government on religion, and no unnecessary encroachment of religion on the government. And
Hmm.
so that whole subject is a beautiful subject. I've written a book on that subject that I'm actually currently now editing for publishing, and it's just a more than fascinating document, the Constitution.
And so when do we expect the new book coming out about the Constitution?
Ah, editing is such a process, but I'm hoping.
I
Yeah.
know what you mean. I have people who are writers and authors. I'm a writer myself. My wife's a writer, and I know how this editing goes. Believe me, we're not
It's
pressuring you to
so,
saying when it's going to come out. It's like just when do we expect it? So take your time. Take
yeah,
your time.
it's so brutal. But I'm editing two books right now. Going through the editing process. That one book on religion and government, and then another book on kind of defining and kind of getting to the point of this thing called justification by faith,
Uh huh.
and stepping away from the traditional aspect of it, questioning the traditional aspect of it, and then going into the Bible to understand the what the Bible has to say about the subject. So that book is a shorter book, so that is, I'm hoping to get that out in maybe a couple months, 4 or 5 months. The book on religion and government, I'm hoping by the summer.
That is amazing. We're looking forward to that, and I'd like to have you back on and talk more about both books. And of course, going through the U.S. Constitution as well too. And you look at some of the articles, like in Section 1, Section 2, and I'm throwing some examples out there, like with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Section 7, everything. What Bible verses are tied to these sections as well too, and how does it apply?
It's it's not necessarily verses. It's actually, yeah, it is. But it's more looking at the aspects of the ancient records of, for example, in First Kings and in Second Kings, how for example Solomon handled the query between these two women fighting over a child. He told, one of them, cut the child in half. You get one half, they get the other half. And then seeing the actual response of the woman, the true mother saying, just give the child whole. That is a child that should be kept whole. Let this woman have it. Solomon making the decision. You are the true mother. You get the child for saying that. Just analyzing the different situations from the aspect of government, and from the aspect of how, when you look at the figures of Solomon, breaking down what those figures symbolically represent, and the characters, what they symbolically represent in the relation to state. It just blows your mind, not necessarily the connection to the Constitution or the articles, but to the philosophy within those points and those amendments for human rights, and also for rights over conscience.
Hmm. And of course, look at some of it as well too. It involves taxes and money and everything else. And how would the Bible say about taxes and money when it comes to government?
That I the only aspect I really focused on was the relationship between religion and government. So when it came to taxes and things like that, that might be a subject for another book at another time. But the whole my whole thing was the relationship between religion? What is religion's right in the government, and what is the government's right over religion?
Hmm.
Because when you actually look at the kind of dynamic between the Jewish priests and Pilate, for example, there is a special connection, which is an unlawful connection between the government and religion for the sentencing of somebody who has a different religious opinion than the noted, or I would say in that time, noble priests and ministers connected to the government, the Jewish government, and also to the Roman state. So looking at the downfall of religion and religious ministers, of the influence that they may have just because of their relationship to the government, looking at that aspect of what that means for the conscience of the person, for the well-being of the person, for the religion of the person, and also for the state of the government's mind as a whole. And it's just an interesting subject, religion and government.
Hmm. It does sound interesting too. And how do you feel about the current presidency on the handling of the Constitution? Do you think they're following the Constitution fairly?
It's, I mean, any one of the presidents that we've had previously, I've only been alive for so long and I've only seen so many presidents. Um, Beginning, born 1990, so I've only seen so many presidents, and ever since I've come along, I would say that they've really not kept the Constitution as it is. It's probably because the United States is really a business, and the language that is used when defining the Constitution, ever since like the or state or the United States was given over to bankers and became that sort of banking institution instead of a free nation as it was prior to, what was it, 1915 or 19 prior to the 1900s.
Hmm.
We've been a different sort of beast where our Constitution has really been run over by our presidents, and they stay with it as much as would be recognized by I would say, the non-educated citizen on the aspect of the Constitution.
Hmm.
But from what I've seen, they haven't been too keen on it. It's almost as like they're ready to eradicate it
Hmm.
and to replace it with something else. But it's our current president. I would say he just falls in line with the rest of them. Borderline for it, borderline not for it, just to please the uneducated.
Hmm.
Enough.
Right. And what are some of the other subject matters that are looking at or into the future as well, too, with the critical and creative thinking? We cover politics, we cover religion, the government, and what are some other areas are you looking to expand applying to what you're doing?
Well, to me, it's need. My expansion is the need that I hear from the people that I speak to, and the need that I hear from the people that I speak to is mental and spiritual edification in churches and in religion and in religious thought.
Mm.
So, that's me. I'm not really like a politics person. I don't jump into the politics field.
Uh-huh.
There's some intriguing things in it, but you know, my field is the field of religion and religious thought, and trying to get the minds that are in that field, whether they be experts or not experts, to understand that there is a higher thought than the traditional outlook that is fed, enforced, and imposed. And so, from what I've been hearing and from the people I talk to, whether they're pastors or not pastors, there is a need for the Bible's culture and for the Bible's philosophy. And so, to branch out into the further explaining that philosophy to get to what people are actually hungry for,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm about right now.
That is fantastic. Looking forward to what you have as well, too. And just a few more things with Author Linwood Jackson Jr. here on the Mike Wagner Show. And Linwood, I forgot to ask you as well, too. Who are some of your favorite writers and authors growing up?
Oh, that's interesting. I actually have none.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I never was really drawn to any, and I'm sort of glad because I have my own fragrance because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any because it just wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
But, when it comes to writers or anything like that, there's a book, History and Decline of the Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon. He's a good author. Um, I like Rousseau. I reading a book, The Structure of the Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn. Like it's not necessarily the writer, it's the content that I'm more about when I go through anything literary. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, nothing really drew me to any particular artist or writer, and I kind of like that because whenever you read me, like it's my own original essence, and I think that's the most beautiful thing, and that's also something I try um, to get other people to write to deal with themselves, is to get their own essence and to be in their own essence and then to give their own essence.
Mm-hmm. And that's amazing too, how you come up with your own philosophy and looking to see how many people will follow too. So that's going to be very unique, I have to say that. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
My biggest influence, honestly, I don't really have any.
Uh huh.
Yeah, I'm sort of like paving a way. I listen to different people, I listen to different interviews, for example, Kobe Bryant or Conor McGregor. I listen to different interviews from different people that are going and that are blazing a path that has never been walked before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really don't have anyone because there's actually no one that I can even think of that has ever taken the philosophy of the Bible and has done anything with it. Think back to to the Reformation. You think back to Martin Luther or to Calvin, but these people, they were basically bickering about the Catholic religion. They weren't actually trying to get to the Bible's philosophy. They were trying to enforce what they thought the Catholic religion should be, not what the Bible was. So there's you can even go back before Martin Luther to a little tribe called the Waldenses
Mm.
that actually thought to do, what the Bible did, and they taught what the Bible taught, but there's really no one that has ever stepped away from the air of religious tradition to breathe in fresh air of it, to give that fresh air. It's always been this aspect of the Christian religion that's taught in a new philosophical way. So you're not stepping away from the Christian religion, you're just getting the Christian religion in a different sort of light. But for me, it's like the words of the Bible have its own light. And that light, as I'm studying it and as I'm writing about it, it's not the light of any sort of Christian philosophy, any sort of theological theory that exists. And so, like, I would say the only influence I can say is Paul. Um, Paul or the one that they called Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
because the specifically these people, Paul and the one that they call Jesus, they're not actually the characters that the Christian religion teaches about. They're different characters in the Bible than in the religious tradition. So it's like it's pretty interesting the who their persons are in the Bible as opposed to who we are traditionally supposed to believe them to be. So I guess those would be my two main influences, those two ministers.
That's fantastic. And, just following them as well, too. It's a great idea. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
The best advice I could possibly give to anyone um
Take your pick.
about the I would say empathy. Um, one of the problems that the Christian religion has is that it doesn't teach enough about true mental and spiritual empathy. Rather, you are seen as empathetic through acts, through what you do through your body, and which is completely false.
Uh huh.
Empathy should originate not from what you think is right and not what you think will look right and not what you think will get you the commendation of some God because it is right. True empathy comes from mental and spiritual motivation and health,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I completely stress the development and cultivation of the personal religion, because when the heart is educated and when the mind is informed, not just of what the words of the Bible are saying, but how we relate to those words and how we are our own individual person to be born through those words. We can actually become charitable in a very, very great way that is dynamic, that is innovative, and that is, conducive to who we are, to let other people know that they can be who they are and that they can inspire also.
That is amazing as well, too. And once again, Linwood, would like to thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Author Linwood Jackson Jr. here on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we go, Linwood, would like to have you back sometime soon as well, too. What are some of your upcoming projects? What's your website? How do people contact you? And where can people purchase your books?
Yeah, you can purchase my books on Amazon.com. You can go to my website, linwoodjacksonjr.com. Or, you know what? You can just shoot me an email. It's linwoodjackson@hotmail.com. Shoot me an email. I love hearing from everybody, and I love hearing from anybody. So shoot me an email. I will be there to respond and have a dialogue with you over any kind of matter. Light, not light, funny, not funny. I love it.
Oh, that's great as well, too. Look for one from me as well, too. Linwood, just want to say a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic, very inspirational, and looking forward to having you on back soon. And do us a favor, keep us up to date. Love you have on again very soon, 2020.
Definitely.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.